I'm back again, and I am so excited about this particular interview because I get to hang out with Jane Arnold, and we are going to talk about specifically missions from the eyes of a missionary wife. And so I'd like her to introduce herself, and then we'll continue from there.
So my name is Jennifer Arnold, and I'm married to James Arnold, and we serve in Nice, France, and we are there with Serve from Denton Bible, and we have 5 children from the ages of 10 to 18.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Jen, I am excited about this particular interview because most of the time the husband is called into missions, and then the wife kind of follows and the children behind.
Right.
And so we want to just kind of talk about this process of calling a family into missions. Is it the husband's call? Is it the wife's call and all that? Because some people have talked to me and they've said, you know what, the wives are just submitting to their husband by following them in the mission field.
Right.
Was this your experience, or what was your experience?
Well, I had, my experience was a little bit different, but yet similar, so I'll explain that. But I had a heart for missions from way back when I was still single.
Yes.
And so, I really thought I hit the jackpot when I married the missions pastor at the Bible Church, and I did. So I did have a desire to eventually be on the mission field.
Yeah.
Of course, we didn't know if God was going to ever open that door, and eventually He did. And by the time He did, we had 5 very young children.
Yes.
They were 1.5 to 8 when we moved to France.
Yeah, and I want us to talk about that because you're moving to France. So you married this awesome mission pastor, which, by the way, James is the one that actually hired me to be a Serve missionary.
I know that.
And I was very excited to work for Serve. But then you have a 1.5-year-old kid.
Yes.
And then all the way at the age of 8. And you're going to take all these children and take them overseas.
Right.
What did you tell your friends? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and their grandchildren, their grandparents?
Exactly. That was the bigger deal. Yeah, I think that, some of our family were, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And some of our friends too. And honestly, I think going into missions, a lot of times, it's kind of like, when you're being prepared and kind of trained and prepped to go. It's kind of like premarital counseling.
Yeah.
So you learn from that training, but you really don't know what you're getting yourself into until you're on the other side. So we really, because my attitude and James's attitude was, we're finally going, and I love adventure. I love experiencing new things. So I was excited about that. I think that our attitudes filtered over to the kids, influenced the kids. So they were.
Did you have to talk to them about this decision? They are very young.
They were very young, so it was more, our older ones. But they were really excited. Okay. But it wasn't until we got over there that it was, we were all kind of like, what have we done? We left comfort and a home. We moved into a 70 square foot little apartment for our first year, and just, the kids leave most of their things behind and their friends behind, and so that was when the hard part began, once we got over there. And just, learning to really trust the Lord.
So we're going to talk about that hardship of the children and adjusting and language and all that.
Yes.
But before we get there, I want to go back to the process of you and James getting on the same page and deciding we're going to go overseas, and specifically to France.
Yes.
And so there are people that are wondering, did you just follow him? Yes, you had a heart for missions, and that's awesome.
Right.
That's an advantage. Or was this his calling and you joined him, or was this both your calling?
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that the area where I really had to follow him and his calling was in being a pastor.
Okay.
Which in turn made me a pastor's wife.
Yes.
It wasn't so much the missionary part and the moving overseas part, because I was all on board with that.
Yeah.
It was the, I never really saw myself as being a pastor's wife and didn't necessarily feel called into that specific role.
Yeah.
And so that was an area where I really followed my husband and just had to learn to trust God that this is the life that He had for us. And it's been really a 15-year process for me to grow into that vision and that calling. And, little by little, God has been so faithful to develop within me, in my relationship with him, this love for his church.
Yeah.
And I don't see myself as this vibrant leader. And so it's very challenging and stretching for me to be in a leadership position, because whether I like it or not, if you're the pastor's wife, people see you as a leader.
Yes, yes.
And so God has just been so sweet and good and patient with me to grow this love for his people and for his church, and that he's really impressed upon me strongly that this is his family and we're his children, and he's put me in a position to point people to the cross and to teach and train them. And so it's been a long process, but he's been faithful to do it.
It's awesome. So most people are comfortable going to the field alone, and maybe even going with a wife. But then when the children come, they're like, I don't want to take my children overseas.
Yes.
And so someone might be watching and saying, hey, France is not very different from America, so that was an easy thing. What do you say to that? Now, and those are like 3 questions bundled in one.
Right.
And we start in, it's okay to go to the mission single. It's okay to go just with your wife. But then when the children comes, I think that's where most of the stumbling block, or most of the people begin to really question, is God calling me overseas?
Right.
What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's certainly an understandable concern. And because, it's one thing to look after yourself and maybe a husband, but when you take little ones that are in your care, it's a whole nother level of trust in God. And again, he's proven himself so faithful that ultimately he's the one that cares for them.
Yes.
And and France is a beautiful place, and it's filled with Western resources, and so it in a lot of ways it's similar to being in the States, but it's the part that's difficult is it's aggressively secular nation, and our friends sometimes, or our children are sometimes the only Christian in their circle of friends, or in their classes, or maybe even in the entire school. And so it's hard as parents to watch them try to live and navigate in that kind of environment. And so, I think God just reaffirms to me over and over that he's the caregiver of them. And he's given them, a friend when they need one. Most of them have a good friend at church, and that gives them support. And he just provides in his own way. It's maybe not how I would do it, but it's an ongoing daily having to trust Jesus.
So you are in France.
Yes.
And your husband is a pastor of 2 churches.
That's right.
And so most people think missionaries are just sitting at home, praying and having Jesus moment all the time. How is it being a mother in a foreign country to a husband who is pastoring 2 churches?
Right.
So you are a wife to James, pastoring 2 churches and traveling a lot. And then you're a mother to 5 children.
Right.
And this is your first time to come to the missions conference.
It is.
How was that? Just talk to us about that experience a little bit, because I want to hear that.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Well, like kind of what my daily life is like.
Yes.
I keep telling women here that it's really a lot like the life of any mother or wife anywhere here in the States, or maybe in Africa, Kenya. But, my primary goal and function is to be the mom of my children and the wife of my husband, and to support them and care for them. I mean, that's my number one desire and purpose, And so, I seek to draw near to God every day and spend time with him, and to listen to him to see opportunities where he's opening up for me to minister and to share with people just in my daily life. I'm taking care of my family. I'm developing relationships with moms from schools and within the church. And so, it's just like anybody. We're missionaries wherever we are. Just seek to take the opportunities that he opens to minister to people.
Yeah, I like that. We are missionaries wherever we are. And I think sometimes people put missionaries on a pedestal and they're like, okay, these things are done by these people.
Right.
But really, at the end of the day, all families, all Christians, whether you are in America, in Afghanistan, in Kenya, wherever you are, France, that God requires you to be a missionary where you are.
That's absolutely right.
And that's awesome. So what are the struggles that you have that you think if you were here as a mother, you wouldn't have to go through? And you've been in France so long, maybe that's a stupid question, but I wanted to ask that because there are struggles that are unique to being in the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the struggles is, our children they don't feel fully American anymore, and they don't feel fully French. They're those third culture kids that we talk about in mission circles. And so that's one of the burdens of my heart for them is just watching them navigate that and to grow to be okay with who they are. That I'm a third culture kid. I can be proud of that in a lot of ways, but it's, they want to fit in somewhere. And a lot of times they don't feel that. And so I see it kind of as a unique opportunity for God to instruct their hearts that, really you're my child and your culture is the kingdom of God, but that's something that I think they'll mature into over time, hopefully, but just helping them navigate that and grow to understand that and be okay with that,
Yeah. So we're about to finish this interview. There is a person watching us right there. They have a child or children, and they're feeling God is calling them into the mission field, but they're thinking, I am okay, God, to go to the mission field. But what I'm not okay with is taking my children with me.
Yes.
And so you have been there for how long now?
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years. And you took your children, and they're still alive. They're didn't
still
die. So what is your advice to people who are struggling through that right now? Yeah.
Well, I think, ultimately at the end of the day, God is either calling you to a place or he's not. And so, I think in any situation where you're struggling for guidance and wisdom, ultimately the answer is going to come through drawing near to him and resting your heart in him. And there's always going to be things that we have to just trust him with and lay down before the throne at his feet. And so, in my experience, the place where we find clear answers is in his presence, because the light of his presence just burns away all that stuff that makes things confusing. And so, if we're trying to work things out through logic or just the advice of friends and family, or it's, to me, confusion comes and makes it hard to know. So I think it's in his presence and drawing near to him that things become clear.
Very good. So, well, Jen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dennis.
I really enjoyed this, and I hope you have it, and we had a really good discussion here. But I think ultimately, if God is calling you into missions, from what I'm hearing, and you have children or whatever excuse that you have that you're not saying yes to God's calling, ultimately the calling into missions really is a journey of faith. And so it is trusting the Lord with all your hearts and lean not on your own understanding, because your understanding is going to confuse you and just mess you up, but lean on him, and he'll make your path straight. So I hope this has been a blessing to you guys. And Jen, again, thanks for coming. And
thank you, Dennis.
We'll find somebody else and we'll interview them.
Great.
So this is awesome.
Great.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.